You can start losing 10, 20, 50, even 100 pounds with a new doctor-recommended Mega Loss 1000 Miracle Diet Pill program.
Want to look better on the outside? Feel better on the inside. 7 days is all it takes with the Jumpstart 7-Day Weight Loss Program.
I've struggled with diets all my life. I've tried them all, nothing worked. But then I found Atkins. I lost 30 pounds.
Get started now. Call or visit Atkins.com for a free Atkins Quick Start Kit.
So you want to know what it's really like to lose weight on Weight Watchers?
It's called the 21-Day Weight Loss Breakthrough. That only
Time for some tough love. It's not gonna be an easy thing for some of you guys to hear. So many times I get people asking me questions about fancy, specific, nearly magical diets. People ask me about like, oh Igor, I'm on intermittent fasting. Or Igor, can you talk about, ketogenic diet? I stay completely away from food preservative. There are so many of these magical and downright, I wanna say almost bullshit do's and don'ts when it comes to dieting. And I think the reason behind this is when you tell people the truth, they don't almost believe it because they think that dieting is so hard for so many people to do. And it makes sense. In the United States, almost 1/3 of people are obese, 2/3 are overweight. So if it was so simple, why is it that well over 50% of the population can't get a hold of this problem to the point where it's an epidemic? So they think that it has to be something more complicated. They think that there has to be more variables. It can't be as simple as just diet and exercise. Eat less, move more. There has to be something more to it. So they start throwing in all these random variables. Like, it's not just food and exercise, it's sugar, hormone, meal timing. Are you eating 2 meals a day, 6 meals a day, after 6 p.m., before 6 p.m.? No. It's preservatives. That's the problem. You gotta eat paleo. All of these crazy factors, when in reality, guys, there is only one thing. That's it. It's really simple. One thing which has been shown to consistently result in weight loss, whether you're doing this for a week, a month, 10 years, I don't care, this works. And the cool thing about this one magic secret, the truth behind consistent successful weight loss, is that there are so many different ways of achieving this. Starting off with the ketogenic diet. This is probably one of the most common things that people want me to talk about. I get this a lot in my emails, my comments. Essentially what the ketogenic diet involves is you eat high protein, high fat, very low carb. And when we're talking low carb, we're not saying like 100 or 200 grams of carbohydrates. We're talking literally like 50 or less grams of carbohydrates. Essentially, the only carbohydrates you are getting, sauces, we're talking like ketchup or barbecue sauce, which you put all over all of your meaty, high fat, high protein foods, or like vegetables. That's pretty much it. Literally, guys, if you want to see this, go into Instagram and look up the keto hashtag. It's just a lot of meats and sauces and oils and butters and all of that stuff. And does it technically work? Yes, because here's the magic. If you do it correctly, it puts you into a calorie deficit. And this is the truth. This is the magic that is so simple that it's almost embarrassing that I have to talk about this because I've said this so many times, but I gotta keep banging it into your guys' heads, especially all you guys out there who are maybe beginners or maybe new to my channel. This, in the world of fitness, it's like step one. It's rule number one.
The first rule of Fight Club is
calorie deficits burn body fat.
The second rule of Fight Club is
subscribe to VitruvianPhysique. But for everybody else out there, there's still so many people who are confused about all these magic diets and bullshit gimmicks. Dr. Oz selling some friggin' magic berry grown in the Himalayan mountains or something.
It gets fat busters for 5 body types in just 5 days. And now I've got the #1 miracle in a bottle to burn your fat. It's raspberry ketone.
Whatever it is, they love it and they just won't let me be.
Which is supposed to make you lose weight. No, this makes you lose weight. Everything else, it either doesn't work or it's just a fancy hidden way of tricking you into once again getting a calorie deficit. Now, the reason that the ketogenic diet works is that when you restrict yourself of a certain food, for example, carbohydrates, which is a very, very big part of the average person's diet, you are inadvertently, without even realizing it, probably going to have a much higher chance, a much higher likelihood of eating in a calorie deficit. If I tell you go eat all the protein you want, you could stock up on steak and chicken, eggs or cheese or whatever, and you may have a lot more fat intake. The decrease in carbohydrates is going to result in a net calorie deficit. When they eat so little carbohydrates, when they cut out the breads, the sugars, the candies, or even unfortunately the healthy stuff. Like a lot of people on keto can't really have fruit, which is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of the ketogenic diet. That being said, once you cut out all this stuff, the net effect is a calorie deficit, and therefore this diet technically it does work. Actually, one of my favorite YouTubers, Boogie2988, he actually did use this, and I'm pretty sure he went from like, the guy's extremely overweight. He went from like almost 600 pounds down to like 500, approaching 400 pounds. So the fact that it resulted, you know, like a good 70, 80 pounds of weight loss, you know, congratulations to him. It is good, and it shows that it does work. However, it's not the only diet that works. Intermittent fasting. This one, I gotta be honest, kind of annoys me because although I use it, and a lot of, you know, people in the fitness industry use it, a lot of people who may be kind of newer to fitness and nutrition and don't even know what intermittent fasting is, they may misconstrue it. I get a lot of messages like this. They're like, hey Igor, I'm on intermittent fasting, or I'm dieting using intermittent fasting. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. You're not on intermittent fasting as a diet. Intermittent fasting is simply a tool which allows you to hit your diet easier. It's a tool of convenience. Essentially, with intermittent fasting, you have a much smaller window of opportunity in terms of time that you can actually eat throughout the day. Instead of waking up at 8 in the morning and then eating all the way up until like midnight, we're talking 14-hour window, pretty much whenever you're awake that you can eat, you know, breakfast, lunch, supper, dinner, snacks. You have a much smaller time frame. We're talking maybe 6 or 8 hours. Now, the reason that it works is that chances are, without even realizing it, inadvertently, if you have smaller, you know, window of time to eat, you are, you know, drum roll, you're gonna eat in a calorie deficit. Because you have less time to eat, chances are it's not gonna be as easy for you to eat the same amount of calories, the same amount of food, as opposed to had you eaten over the course of the entire day. It's pretty much like tricking your body into eating in a calorie deficit without actually realizing it. Paleo, this one is kind of weird, and it kind of annoys me because all the other diets, they still involve you to have an understanding from a nutritional standpoint of what you are eating. We're talking calories, we're talking macronutrients, but from what I understand, the fundamental aspect of paleo is eating food with minimal processing, essentially food that was available 200 years ago. So if it wasn't available 200 years ago, we're talking like the basics, we're talking like meat, fish, vegetables, as opposed to like candies, donuts, all these processed foods. Essentially, you don't eat that. Now, the reason that paleo does work is that many of these processed foods tend to be higher in calories. Compare like a banana and some strawberries as opposed to like a Big Mac. Chances are we're gonna be like double or triple in terms of the calories. And this is why inadvertently, without even realizing it, once again, it almost like tricks you into eating in a calorie deficit, because all of these paleo-friendly foods, which were available for hundreds of years, they're not as calorically dense. Like, we're still animals, and animals want to do like 3 things. We want to sleep, eat, and fuck. So if you can get that second option, eat, and you can do it better with more calories, our brains love that. That's where our brains are addicted to high calorie, high sugar, delicious thing. Hundreds or thousands of years ago when we were cavemen, if you didn't eat, you'd die. But now eating, there isn't as much of a food scarcity. You know, you can walk in and for like $1, you can get like 300 calories worth of a burger. That's unheard of. Whereas thousands of years ago, you had to like spend 2 days hunting down and stabbing a mammoth, and then you get to eat for 1 day, then you have to go another 4 days without eating. So calories, especially high calorie density food, was precious. So our brain was hardwired to love that stuff. Now, this isn't specifically because of the processing. If a food was created within the last 50 years, as opposed to the last 5,000 years, your body doesn't care about timing. Food doesn't care about timing. The universe doesn't care about timing. It's not like, oh my God, 40 years ago, well, that's a fat food immediately, regardless of its macronutrient or calorie composition. It is simply due to the fact that with the advancement of modern civilization, we have been able to make more cheaper, high calorie, high sugar, high fat, high everything foods for less money, and that is going to be a lot easier for you to get fat on because there's a much less likelihood of you eating in a calorie deficit if you eat these newer processed foods. Low-fat dieting. This is essentially the exact opposite of ketogenic dieting. So in this case, you eat a relatively low fat intake. Now, when we say low, we're not talking like desperately low, because your body still does require a basic amount of fat intake. Just for general health purposes, a good minimum would probably be around 20% of your total income in calories, or 0.25 grams of fat per pound of body weight. So the absolute lowest I would recommend, for example, a 200-pound man to go would be 50 grams of fat. You don't really want to go much less than that. For example, if you're a 200-pound man and you were dieting on 50 grams of fat, there's a good chance that you may be able to increase your carbohydrates to kind of, balance out. As one goes down, the other one goes up, and you may be able to take your carbohydrates up to 2 or 3. There's some guys who diet on literally like 400 grams of carbohydrates. So the question is, does this work? And the answer is yes. I know a lot of people are going to start throwing around terms like insulin sensitivity, but for 99.99% of the population, that is bullshit. Whether your body's consuming high carbs or high fat, as long as we keep protein essentially the same, because that's a separate topic since you need protein to sustain muscle while dieting. Whether you increase or decrease carbohydrates or fat, it's kind of like these two sides of the same coin. One can go up, one can go down, and it doesn't necessarily matter. Once you do all the calculations, you break it all down, as long as the total calories that you are eating puts you into a calorie deficit, you're fine. This is actually one of the reasons that when I work with my online coaching clients, when we start working together, I actually ask them, I'm like, what are your food preferences? Are you the kind of person who really goes for the candy, the fruits, the sugars? Do you like sweet carbohydrate high stuff? Or are you the kind of individual that when you're hungry and you feel like cheating on your diet, you go for more fatty foods? Do you love bacon, burgers? Because based on their answer, I may give them different macronutrient proportions, whether we're gonna go high carbohydrate, less fat, or vice versa. And again, both of these options are equally effective as long as you take them all into consideration in global macronutrient, global calorie intake on a daily basis. And if this is in a calorie deficit, it's fine. Another one I've heard about is called the Atkins Diet, and I haven't heard too much about this, but when I did look into it, it seems to be very similar to the ketogenic diet, aka low carbohydrate, high protein, high fat. And once again, just like with the ketogenic diet, as long as you are in a calorie deficit, it's completely okay and it is effective. Weight Watchers, this one is kind of funny because when I looked into it, it seems like it's almost trying to trick you into calorie counting. I think a lot of people who go and look into like easy, quick weight loss, if you throw like macronutrients and calories and, let's be honest, science and numbers at them, they're kind of like, it's almost like they're intimidated by it, so they don't necessarily like that. Weight Watchers, it seems like it's the exact same thing. Instead of calories, there's like a point system, so certain food is like high in points and low in points, and you only have a certain amount of points throughout the day. And I really think to myself, like, why don't we just skip the middleman, cut the bullshit? Instead of points, just think of them as calories. If you don't like the idea of calories, fine, think of them as points. Instead of saying, I'm trying to eat 2,000 calories per day, say, I'm trying to eat 2,000 points per day. I really don't care. But at the end of the day, it's a very similar concept. Without you even realizing it, this point system is actually tricking you into eating in a calorie deficit. And as we talked about throughout this entire video, it works. Veganism and vegetarian. This one is interesting because a lot of people on YouTube, especially in social media, have really been getting into this for the last few years, and they swear by vegetarian diets, or specifically vegan diets especially, saying that it helps you lose weight. And it probably does, but not for the reason that you think. If you were to eat a purely vegan diet, but you were to eat just vegan junk food, let's say you ate 4,000 calories a day of Oreos, which are vegan, you're not going to lose weight. In fact, you're probably going to gain weight because even though it is a vegan diet and there's no animal products, you are still eating way too many calories. And unfortunately, in this case, it's going to be high in fat, high in carbohydrates, low in protein, which is like double bad. So it's not gonna work. I believe the reason that vegan diets work is that, once again, it inadvertently almost tricks you into eating lower calorie density foods. For example, think of the best, most popular, delicious junk foods that are obviously based around animal products. We're talking hot dogs, burgers, pizzas, all these dairies, pastries, all junk food has at least some kind of animal product. So when you eat less animal products, you are inadvertently, without even realizing it, probably going to be eating cleaner. And this is almost what tricks your body into eating in a calorie deficit without even realizing it. But is it specifically the fact that it's a vegan diet? Is it specifically the fact that animal products make you fat? No. If you were to eat in a calorie deficit and you were to have a combination of vegan and non-vegan foods, no one's gonna get fat if they're eating 2,000 calories of tuna, lettuce, chicken breast. It's just not gonna happen. I guarantee you there are fat vegans out there, just like I guarantee you there are perfectly healthy and in some cases lean and shredded omnivores out there. Take myself for an example. I dieted down to a relatively impressive body fat percentages multiple years in a row, and I did this eating as many animal products as I wanted. Another one that's very popular, especially in older individuals, low sodium diet. So this is essentially, you can eat whatever you want, but try to go easy on the sodium, try to go easier on the salt. And this kind of fits in with everything we talked about so far in this video. For example, with vegan foods, it's a very similar concept. You are inadvertently being tricked into eating somewhat healthier options. When you look at high sodium foods, once again, I mean, like what? Chips, burgers, pizzas, all of this junk food, all the good stuff is usually high fat, high calorie, high sugar, high sodium diet. So when you cut out the sodium without even realizing it, it's going to be a lot easier for you to eat in a calorie deficit because all of the higher sodium foods are also higher calorie foods. Another option when it comes to restricting a certain type of food as opposed to sodium, now we're talking low sugar. And once again, same exact concept. Lots of times, higher sugar foods are higher calorie density food. And I know a lot of you guys are out there thinking like, Igor, but isn't there like a sugar epidemic plaguing the world, which is making us so unhealthy and fat and overweight and like increasing levels of diabetes? And yes, sugar, a high sugar intake is not that great for you, but sugar has been shown to not necessarily be the leading cause of obesity and weight gain, for example, in the States. Although a high sugar diet is not that great for you, it's not the sugar itself which is causing you weight gain or an inability to lose weight. It's the overall calorie density. I'll be honest, man, low sugar is boring as hell, but it does work. It's lower calorie, you will get lean. And the final and best form of dieting, the most versatile form of dieting, lower calories. And this is what we talked about this entire video. This is the #1 tactic or strategy that you need to look for in your diet if you want to lose weight. I don't care what you do. I don't care what food restrictions you make, whether you cut out animal products or sugar or sodium or high fat or high carb. I don't care what you do, as long as you decrease your overall calorie intake, your body's going to have insufficient energy. When it has insufficient energy, it needs to get energy from somewhere else. And the body has one big, great energy storage system: body fat. If you eat clean, it's entirely possible for you to sit there and eat fruits, vegetables, boiled chicken breasts, tuna, you know, all these super clean foods, but if you eat 4,000 calories worth of them, you're not gonna lose weight, probably gonna gain weight. Do not forget micronutrients. We are talking vitamins and minerals. If you go to McDonald's for all of your meals and you somehow are able to count out the food and eat in a calorie deficit, yes, you will lose weight. I think there was an individual, there was this, I think it was a university nutrition professor who actually showed and proved to his class he ate nothing but McDonald's for 30 days and he lost weight because he counted the macronutrients, the calories, and he showed that it is possible to lose weight on a McDonald's or a junk food diet. However, I do not recommend this because, once again, weight loss and health are two different things. You might lose fat and you might look good on the outside, but you might feel like crap on the inside because you're not getting anywhere near enough vitamins, enough minerals. There's just so much crap associated with this that I do not recommend this. Also, guys, to add to that, do not forget fiber. The average, recommended intake of fiber, there's kind of a range, but for a man, it's probably around 25 to 30 grams per day. For a woman, it's a bit less at 20 to 25 grams per day. Sorry for being blunt, but you do not want to be that guy that eats 200 grams of protein, 2 grams of fiber, and then drops dead because he hasn't taken a dump in 2 weeks. Okay, guys, that is it. I think we blasted through like 10 different diets. But I really want to show you guys that there are so many different ways of dieting and they all technically work as long as you're in a calorie deficit. So don't forget your fiber, don't forget your micronutrients, don't forget at least some daily exercise. Put this all together and you will have a long, healthy, sustainable period of fat loss. I don't care what diet you follow as long as you're able to stick to it. That's it. Also, guys, since I did blow through all of these diets relatively quickly, if you want a full, in-depth, like science-y video about any one of these individual diets specifically, leave me a comment down in the description box below, and the most popular ones I'll do a full video on in the future. But until then, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Hadouken!